to the final stretch of your time on earth and look back on the activities, the service, and the attitudes of your life, what will you see? Welcome to Truth for Life with Alistair Begg. It's a serious question, and today's message reinforces the fact that we're living not for those around us, not for ourselves, but for God alone. Alistair Begg calls today's study in 1 Corinthians one true judge. And we'll begin with a short review of yesterday's message. Here's Alistair.
What is the criteria for assessing ministry amongst those who've been given to the church as servants of Christ, entrusted with the secret things of God? God is going to judge it on the basis of faithfulness. Now you say to me, well, that's very interesting, and so what? Let's move on. No, let's not move on for a moment. Let's make sure we understand this. How are most pastors judged? On the basis of faithfulness? No. On the basis of the size of their church. Now, is that not a dumb idea? Why? Because we already discovered in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 that while one may plant and another may water, chapter 3, while one may plant and another may water, only God can make things grow. Only God can make things grow. Do you understand that? Only God can make things grow. So how in the world would we ever use size as a suitable criteria of assessment in relationship to a pastor's effectiveness? But we do. Secondly, we assess pastors on the basis of gift. On the basis of gift. Now, there's another crazy idea, is it not? Are gifts earned? Gifts are given. Therefore, if gifts are given and God is the giver, why in the world would we ever be concerned about the nature of the gifting of an individual, since it's God who gave the gifts? And thirdly, we assess pastors on the basis of personality. But who made the individual the way they are? God. So he says to the Corinthians, you're going to blow yourselves apart. Your church is already fracturing. You're about to destroy yourselves. We're going to come to worse in chapter 5 and on. And he lays it down as a foundational importance. Those who are the servants of Christ must serve the congregation as galley slaves, as those entrusted with the primary responsibility of the secret things of God, and it is phenomenally and primarily required of them that one thing be true in their lives, irrespective of a big deal or a small deal, irrespective of the nature of their gifting, irrespective of their personality. It is required of such servants that they in turn be found faithful. That's why Jesus in Matthew chapter 24, as he speaks about his return, says to his disciples, listen and listen carefully. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. We're coming to that in a moment. Verse 45, Matthew 24, who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants on his household, to give them their food at the proper time? This is the task of a teaching pastor. To be faithful, to show up and provide the food at the proper time. And it's got to be food. It's got to be digestible. Who is the faithful and wise servant? It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Now, of course, this translates into every sphere of ministry. The fact that Paul is focusing here on his own ministry, as we're about to see, does not mean that we are somehow establishing a principle which doesn't carry right through the totality of the church. Whether it be in greeting here in the morning, that the individual is faithful as a greeter. Whether it be in putting out all that coffee stuff in the commons, faithful to the task. Whether it be in taking those little children on your knee in the nursery, faithfulness. Whatever it may be, singing in the choir, all the way through. Think of every area of ministry. It is required of a servant that they would be faithful. Now we ought to pause at this point and have the song, that guy's song, may all who come behind me find me faithful. May the fire of my devotion light their way. Is that in your heart this morning? I tell you, as a kid growing up in Scotland, I got thrown in this Bible class to which I didn't want to go. I've told you that story. My father took me there on a Sunday afternoon. I was wearing my kilt, a pathetic picture, and he told me at lunchtime, we moved home 2 weeks prior to that, and he said, this is the day that you go to Crusaders. I said, let's discuss that. He said, there's not a chance, there is no discussion, you're going. And I remember going in the car and sitting there with a long face, and he drove me to the Clarkston Halls, the local town hall. He opened the door, and he said, leave. And I remember going up the stairs, looking always for a way of escape. It had railings all the way up. I was completely trapped. He parked his car at the bottom to make sure there was no way out except that was jeopardizing to one's life. And I went into Crusaders and sat on the front row, and the rest is history from there, you know. And they used to have this little song that I used to sing eventually, that it was like the national anthem to me. It went like this: the Lord hath need of me, His soldier I will be. He gave Himself my life to win, and so I mean to follow Him and serve Him faithfully. And although the road be fierce and long, I'll carry on. He made me strong. He makes me strong. And then one day, His face I'll see. And oh, the joy when He says to me, well done, my brave crusader. And I said, that's it. That is what I want. That's my life right there in one song. Faithfulness. That is the requirement of the servants of the King. Not success, faithfulness. That's the instruction of verses 1 and 2. Then the explanation of verses 3 and 4. We need to hasten on. Paul says, I care very little if I am judged by you or by any human court. Indeed, I do not even judge myself. What does he mean by that? Does he mean that he's above examination? No. Does he mean that he's above self-criticism and self-awareness? No. He establishes the pattern for any good pastor. Indeed, he drives it home to Timothy and then to Titus. If you're going to be effective in leading God's people, you need to be prepared to hold up your teaching and hold up your life to their scrutiny. You need to be prepared for their assessment. But the context is very clear, and that's why it's always very important that we read our Bibles in relationship to the context. In Corinth, these people were going wrong because they were making judgments on the basis of wrong things. And they were beginning to assess the hidden matters of the heart without any basis for doing so. Consequently, Paul says, it really matters very little to me what you or what anybody thinks about me. And since I myself am anybody, he says, I don't even really care what I think about myself. Paul speaking, he would be saying this: even though I'm the one who knows myself best, I daren't even pronounce judgment on myself. How then will you, he says to the Corinthians, who don't know me even half as well, be prepared to pronounce judgment on me? Although he may be personally unaware of any wrong in his relationship to his ministry, and it is to this that he's referring. How do we know that? Because he also wrote Romans chapter 7. And in Romans chapter 7 he says, you know, the good I want to do, I don't do, and the bad I don't want to do, I end up doing. So he is not saying here that when I assess the totality of my life, I can't find anything wrong in it. What he's saying is, in relationship to my responsibility with the secret things of God and in exercising the role of a galley slave before you, he says, you know, I've got to be honest and say that as best as I know my own heart, I'm not failing you in terms of faithfulness to these things. But he's a really sensible fellow. And he says in verse 4, my conscience is clear. I can put my head on the pillow at night. But he says, that doesn't make me innocent. Because what may appear to Paul to be dazzling and beautiful may actually be hay, stubble, dirt in the eyes of God. I find myself far too lenient when it comes to self-assessment. So a sensitive leader entrusted with these things can't be immune, nor wants to be, to a genuine word of encouragement. Sometimes when one preaches on this kind of thing, people don't know what to say to you afterwards because they were planning on saying, thank you very much. And then they think that this is offensive and they can't say that anymore. No, that's fine. All of us are happy for thank yous. All of us are happy for genuine words of encouragement. All of us at the same time need to be prepared for honest words of constructive criticism. But, and here is the real qualifying statement, no minister can remain faithful to his calling if he lets his congregation play God with his motives and with his actions. Because as human beings, our knowledge and our understanding of the facts are imperfect, and our criticisms and our compliments are also imperfect. Therefore, in humility and in love, the servant of Christ mustn't allow himself ultimately to care about other people's evaluation of his ministry. That's a hard thing to get at. Because whenever you do anything in front of somebody else, one of your immediate reactions is to say to somebody, how was it? Go home, you ask your wife, did you stay awake? I mean, if I can fall asleep reading my notes on a Saturday night, why can't you fall asleep listening to them on a Sunday morning? I mean, let's be honest. But at the end of the day, the issue is this. You know, you can walk out of here and it was a 10 or a 6 or a 4 or a 3 or it didn't even get on the scale. I don't even care. I want to do my best, but I don't care. I don't care if you loved it and I don't care if you hated it. I don't care. I care about one thing. I'm going to give an account to Almighty God for this morning as for the last few Sunday mornings.